Welcome back, everybody, to the Attract and Stand Out podcast. I'm your host, Darlene Holly, and I am so excited that you are here today. I am going to be interviewing my amazing friend, Amy Graves. She has over 20 years experience in the retail industry, from sales to new store regional operations management. She has worked in nonprofit or for-profits, nonprofits in both the retail setting. Today, she works with small businesses to develop a digital marketing presidents. Did I just say presidents? She has a digital marketing presence while using Google Analytics to help understand traffic flow on their website. Amy is a certified business analyst through UC Davis and the International Institute of Business Analysts. Amy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Woo! I am so excited to have you here. It's going to be a super fun conversation. Amy and I do some volunteer work together. We've had a chance to really get to know each other over the past couple of months, and I'm just thrilled that you're here today. Before we dive in, how's things? I like to start the podcast nowadays. I feel like we're like the beginning of 2021, and like that's the best question to ask, right? Like, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's amazing how well things are going right now. I'm very excited. I've got so much on my plate that it's actually a good problem to have with COVID and the way it's affected small businesses. So things are going really well.
Yeah, I love to hear that, because you're right. Some people we talk to, like, they're struggling, and COVID has made big impacts. And then other types of businesses, like our online world, is exploding right now. And so there's a lot of people that are reaching out for support and getting what they need.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, especially I was reading a stat recently that in August, Yelp looked at all their small businesses, and 60% had closed by August of 2020. So if you're a small business owner using Yelp, 60% of those people had closed. So that doesn't say a lot about the standings of small businesses right now in this country.
Yeah, it breaks my heart. And so many of those businesses are women-owned businesses too.
Yep, absolutely. That's why our work at SCORE is so important, to be in there to help. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited to hear your story, because though we've been having a chance to get to know each other over the past few months, I don't really know your story. So I'm super curious. Tell us a little bit about who you are and how you started this beautiful online business that you have created.
So my dream of starting this business actually started in 2003. So almost 20 years ago. I was working in retail, and the first two stores that I went into, and I had to improve them stores or they were closed, I saw an increase of $20 million in sales. So I'm like, hey, I got this.
Yeah, that's amazing.
By 2008, the 5 stores I worked in saw a combined $40 million increase in sales revenue. And it was all different types of retail. But I wasn't quite ready. Like, I knew I wanted to be a consultant. Like, this is my dream job, one of those situations. And 2008, I ended up disabled. By 2015, I was visibly disabled. And in 2018, I moved to California and had doors thrown in my face, from cities to school districts to, major employers. Disabled people can't be hired. Our risk management board says you're not hireable. So I'm like, okay, well, you know what? It's time to just do it, get over my fear. And I'm just going to start my own business. And March 2nd, 2020, that's what I did.
I love the date. Like, let's take a note real quick. Like March 2nd, 2020. So that was like weeks before we knew that the whole world was going to come tumbling down.
Actually, 10 days later, California shut down. Yeah. But I'm still here. I have clients and I've done really well. So that says a lot.
Yeah. What was that experience like for you, like 10 days into your business, knowing that so many things were changing and that like the world as we knew it was not looking quite like we had expected any longer? How did that affect your momentum and mindset?
It actually didn't. And I think that was an interesting mindset. I'm very confident in my ability to run businesses. From everything I've done in my past and being a business analyst, I understand the internal workings of a business. I see how every department works together. So for me, I was like, okay, well, by June, we'll be out of this and we'll be fine. So like the blogs I wrote were like, it's okay. Let's see, how are you managing? Let's talk about, pivoting, because that was the word of March. Let's pivot. And I'm like, let's see, how are you managing to be online while having like a brick and mortar store? How are you managing to continue to drive your business even though you can't have face-to-face clients? And I just kept going. And then June came and went and went. By September, I was freaking out. September was not a good time. I actually ended up doing probably the best thing I've done for my business is I hired a business consultant to work with me on my messaging, because I realized I had to completely change how I was looking at my company, who my ideal client was. And I decided I needed to hire someone to help me with that. So that got me grounded and going, and things have just been taking off since then. So it was an interesting change.
So what was it that made you want to start your consulting business specifically? Was it anything that
Yep, it
triggered
was.
that for you?
Yep. I looked around and I always knew I wanted to work with small businesses. And about 10 years ago, I started shopping primarily small businesses. I don't shop I'm like everyone, I still shop at Target and Amazon here or there, but whenever possible, I try and help the community first.
Yeah.
And when I was looking at starting my business, I'm like, well, maybe would small businesses need someone like me? And I went back and I looked at every small business I'd shopped at over the last 10 years, 90% of them have closed. So then
Wow.
I went and looked at national averages, and the national average is that most small businesses that start, 90% have closed within the first 10 years. 50 of them closed within the first year alone. So I'm like, okay, so there's a need for me. How do I work my company to make sure I'm fitting in this need? Which is actually why I also make sure that I'm all about volunteering. Not everybody can afford my service, and I get that, but every small business can use what I have to offer. So that's why I make sure I volunteer with 2 different organizations. So I'm helping new entrepreneurs learn some of the basics so that they're starting off the ground running and on a better foundation than if they didn't have that assistance.
Yeah. And it's so important, right? Like the ability to
Yep.
be able to have a thriving business that allows you the opportunity to give back to those that can't either afford you or wouldn't even know where
Yep.
to start. In a lot
Yep.
of cases as well, like having the ability to just serve and make an impact in other people's lives. I know that's
Yep.
part of like my mission and my purpose with my business. And like I donate a percentage of my coaching sessions goes to kiva.com or
Oh,
kiva.org, I think it is. But it's for small micro businesses that are being started all over the world. And they
yep.
take loans basically, and the money gets like filtered around to help different business owners each month. And I love
That's
that
awesome.
concept. Like I feel so powerful. Well, I don't feel powerful, but I feel like I'm
Impact.
creating like that ripple impact and effect into the
Yeah.
world. And that
Yep.
feels really good. Like knowing that I'm helping a small village, like
Yeah.
find water sources to come into their community based off of like that percentage of my income that I'm able to give back. So
Yep.
I
That's
love that you
amazing.
have a serving volunteer heart with your organization as well.
Yep. I'm actually a member of the National Association of Women's Business Owners, NABO, and that's actually a big part of their philosophy too, is that, you're a group of women. Now the goal is to always reach back and give a helping hand up. What can you do to be of service to help someone else get to where you're at so that we can continue to grow the community?
Yeah.
So huge, huge impact is what it's all about.
Yeah. It's part of that legacy piece too.
Yeah, it really
Your
is.
legacy help generations, not necessarily just
Yep.
my generations or my family's generation, but like other people's
Yep.
um, generational path down. So I love that concept.
Yep.
So we have a lot in common with our backgrounds because your background is retail and my background is retail management as well.
Very
So I
nice.
thought that was super interesting. I knew that you did retail, but I just connected it while we were talking. I was like, "Ooh, wait a minute! Like we could probably share some fun stories if we wanted to
Right.
about
Oh, the
retail
things.
management and all the pieces that come into it." We won't go there today, but I am super curious. Like, what are some of the pieces from your past career in retail management that you really find are super valuable in the business that you started today?
So interesting enough, it's that retail management that got me to really get my certification in business analyst. Because what made me so successful in retail management and getting into new store regional operations was I could look at data and I could connect that to human behavior. So I could see what my customers' need were. I could see what they were doing, and I could say, okay, this is what the data is reflecting. So I was actually able to improve my stores quickly because I knew what the users needed to make those sales. And so I was able to hire based on what my customer type. I was able to hire based on, service based, because that's important. And do different things that, that you can't just go into retail and say, I'm a manager, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't work that way. Because it's funny, but it's true. My guiding principle when I was a retail manager was I take care of my internal customer being my employees. If I take care of them, their needs are being met and we can come to an agreement. I can't give them everything. That's not the point, but I'm willing to listen and compromise. They're going to take care of my customer.
Absolutely.
And that is absolutely what happened each and every time. So when I work with clients today, it's the same mentality. I'm going to come in, I'm going to make sure your needs are being met, for your customer, so that your customer is like, okay, yeah, this is what I need, but I'm going to help you see what your customer wants. That's where the ideal client language comes in and all that fun stuff. But you as an employer or you as the company have to have everything in place too. Like if you don't have certain automations in place, you're not going to be able to focus on your customers. So what do we need to automate? How do we get you to where you need to be?
Yeah,
So it
and
all
that's a
comes back.
great point that you bring up, because you have to take care of your people in your
Mhm.
organization. Like, they're the ones that are out there helping your customers,
Yeah.
giving great service, giving poor service, like all those different things. But if
Yeah.
you're in tune and you know exactly what makes them excited to come to work each day and like motivated and encouraged, like that was my favorite part about HR training and development in my career as operations management, is I was coaching my clients, aka my employees back then.
Nice. Yep.
Um, but I was like mind blown when I realized, I was like, I'm actually coaching. Like, I didn't even know what coaching was when I was in retail management. It was after that I left retail
Yep.
management that I found business coaching, that I was like, oh my God, I've been a coach my whole entire life. How did I not know this word? And I didn't know I could have a whole career out of it either.
Right.
How amazing
Yep.
is that? Because that was my
Yep.
favorite part, right? Like helping my employees, motivating them, encouraging them, helping them promote within the company, or sometimes
Yep.
promote into other companies because they
Yep.
had different plans and different dreams.
Yep. Well, and that was like one of my pride points when people would talk to me when I was after my first two stores. I had promoted 20 associates to assistant managers, and 10 of them became store managers. Like to me, that says more about the whole company and what you are able to achieve than just saying, yeah, well, I had this, I mean, the 20 million in revenue is awesome, but the fact that so many people were able to grow, which at the end of the day is what's important. I hope my clients grow from after working with me so that they can continue, because I want them to continue to succeed after we're done. But I wanted my employees to do the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you're training them to be able to do it on their own at some point too,
Yep.
right? It's
Yep.
not just about coming in necessarily and fixing the problem for them, but it's giving
Mhm.
them the tools, the resources, and the confidence that they can do this on their own if they need
Yep.
to, or they can continue and have, somebody alongside them through that
Yep.
process. But just giving them that information makes such a huge impact.
Absolutely. Yep. And it's funny that when you said that too, it's when I got into business analyst, I had the exact same experience. I'm like, I've been doing this my entire life analyzing businesses. How did I not know this was the term for it?
Yeah. You don't know what you don't know, right? So
Right.
eventually, I went into retail management. Oh, I didn't go into management right away, but I went into retail right out of high school, and I did really well. I got promoted really quickly with inside the organization,
Yep.
and you just don't know what you don't know. Like, I didn't have
Yeah.
any other experience, other things to look at.
Yep.
When I knew that I was done with retail management after being in it for, gosh, what was it? I think it was like 9 or 10 years. I knew I was ready for something different, and I needed the flexibility and the freedom in my schedule, which I was not getting from retail. As you know,
Yep.
like, the hours are intense. There's always
Yep.
a walkthrough or district coming or this big thing happening. And like,
Yep.
for heaven bid, you took a vacation or you like took the day off, like without somebody calling you because, the world needs you there. I felt like they needed me so much, right? I was so
Yeah. Yeah.
invaluable, which I was in some ways, but it's retail management. Like they can find somebody else to come and do it pretty easily too. But it was when I was like, finally, I was like, I need to do something different. Like I need to figure out what there's got to be more out there for me. And I wanted like to be able to be home with my boys and do different things like that and not have to feel like that mom guilt that I felt when I was at work. And then when I was at home, I was thinking about work stuff. So I wasn't even always fully present then either.
Right.
Something was happening. They needed me. And so it was really like such a good feeling to know, like when I finally found a career that I could be passionate about, that I would be able to create on my terms and do it my way and not have to feel like I was at somebody else's beck and call. Like I'm at my kids' beck and call and my family sometimes, but that I choose that, right?
You did choose that one. Yeah. It's not, yeah. Yeah. It was so similar. I got to the point though where, so 2008, when my disabilities, what took me out of retail management, I ended up dealing with temporary paralysis of both arms for 5 years.
Wow.
So I couldn't even drive. I went 3 years without being able to drive and all this other stuff. So that knocked me out of management pretty quick. But it was funny, like I still didn't get out because my next jobs were all still in community service like that. I think I managed the front house for a theater. And then, I went into doing part management of a retail at a store at a museum while being a tour guide. So
yeah, so you didn't get too far from it.
I never got too far from it. I was still like, even when I left Minnesota, I think I was a administrative analyst, but it was still in a store that sold commercial tires. So I was still selling something.
Well, you always have that little bit of a sales background. I feel like, and especially after retail, like it's such a part of like the culture that you're used to being around, and you become really good at it working in retail. Like when I think back to it, I'm like, I learned so many of the skills that I use in my coaching business now. I didn't put them together in the first few years of my business, but when I look back now, I'm like there was so many things that I still use today that I learned from my retail management background. Like customer service is huge to me. Like I want to over deliver in every single possible way. And I'm really good at going to other retail stores and like knowing how they should figure their stuff out. When I go in, I'm like, oh, they should not do it this way. They need this, 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 and this. With such a bad habit. Like once you do it for a living for so long, you're like, especially if I go into Best Buys or Gaps now, because those are the two retail stores that I worked for. I'm like, this is not okay.
What's funny is if you're like me and you will actually leave a review saying great service, but in my day, this is the things we had to do instead. That would have taken this another step further.
I laugh because my nephew works for Best Buy now, and he's doing really well. He's been with the company for a couple of years. And every time we're visiting with him, I'm always like asking him questions, and he says, and I'm like, well, back in my days, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, stop saying that, Darlene. Like it wasn't that long ago, first of all, and second of all, like it's still been a long time. Like retail is so quickly, like the way that they do stuff now, it's completely different from how it was when I worked there. So I just laugh at myself though. I'm like, I still know my employee number. Like I could probably go run this place again. I got this.
It's funny. My first retail job was actually commission sales. I sold diamonds, and they went out of business, so I can't go back and do that.
I could totally go back and run the heck out of a Best Buy if I ever needed to. I don't want to go back and do it. Maybe on Black Friday. I do miss Black Friday. Like I know I'm crazy for saying that. It's like the most insane day, but it's my like the energy of that day alone was worth it for me. Like I love that high.
It was so funny. I was the one that I worked at a department store my last 4 Black Fridays, and I lived the farthest away, so they gave me a split schedule. So I had to work 3 a.m. to 8 a.m. and then turn around and come back and do the 6 p.m. to midnight shift.
Nice.
Like nice.
Really not cool. I don't miss the scheduling at all. Tell me a little bit about your business now and like what success means to you as you're creating this business.
it's funny. Thinking about it, it was always one of those, for me, success is, it's based on my client. How much have they achieved? Um, my first client saw a 900% increase in sales after 5 weeks of working with me. Like, we got everything together. We did it. It was great. So for me, that's a success. I've got another client that I'm working with right now that um, we were tweaking her ideal client language, and we decided to take kind of a runoff on some phrases. And within 24 hours of the new language on her website, she booked 5 demo appointments for her software package. So I'm like, that to me means success. I get so frustrated when I see other people who are consultants and all they do is say, well, just do this, 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 and it's a checklist. And they don't really care if it actually works. Because I have a checklist, but the problem is my checklist has to be altered for each client, because each client has different needs. They have different employees. They have different tech. In general, they all have different needs. The base is we all need to use some digital tools. We need some automation, but that varies from client to client. So you can't just check it off. Like, you have to create your checklist and go, okay, so what are your needs within this? And how do we make sure we hit your criteria? And that's when we hit success, because we've built a system for you and your business. So
yeah, it's not cookie cutter. Like, like so many people talk about like this cookie cutter response that you can do in your business. And I found that like you said, every client has a different need. They're at a different place in their business. They have a different mindset struggle or a mindset success. Like, everybody's so unique and different. Like, yeah, I use the same framework with all of my clients, but it looks different for each client. And we go down different rabbit holes depending on what's showing up for them and where they really need the most support. In some areas, we just spend a little bit of time and we make some tweaks and then we're on to the next thing. And then other times we have to dig really deep because there's a lot of work that needs to be done to uncover like what that messaging is, or getting super clear on their client, or making sure they have the right offer for their business that's going to actually call in their clients and not call in all the wrong people, right? There's nothing worse than that.
Yep, exactly. It's yep.
And it's one of those things too, like, I'm so glad that you brought up that, like, success it means so many different things for so many different people. But when we look at the work that we do as like, I'm a coach or a consultant, your end goal is to help support your client. Like, your clients are coming to you because they need support around something. And it's our job to show up and make sure we give them the tools and the resources and the support and ask the right questions. And, sometimes we hold their hands, sometimes it's tough love, sometimes it's gentle. But making sure that we're getting them the results that they're looking for. There's nothing like worse than, like, at the end of a relationship realizing like this didn't work, or we didn't make get where we wanted to go. And that's one thing that I definitely know that is super important to me. And I pride myself in, like, I'm going to do what it takes to help you get where you're going. I'm not just going to be like, all right, here you go. Good luck with that. Thanks.
Well, it's like, even in my contracts, it's like, I know I have to put like a time frame, but I always build in a buffer. So I'm like, you know what? If we need a buffer, we need a buffer. We work until we've got you where you can be successful. Because that's the point at the end of the day. You're not paying me to get you set up and then walk away and be like, oh, wait, that didn't work.
And you have to, like, show up and you have to take the action and you have to do the work. There's that other piece to it.
There is, absolutely.
But making sure that, like, if your client needs something extra, like, go the mile to make sure you get where they're going.
Absolutely.
And that only helps you in business going further afterwards too. Like, that's when you get raving reviews and raving fans, and you get testimonials and you get referrals from your clients' friends. Like, that's when you know, like, okay, this is working, and, like, this is why I'm showing up every day.
Okay. Yep. Exactly.
Yep. I know that COVID, like, was an obstacle that came your way, obviously early on in your business, like by like 10 days. Other than that, what would you say, like, you wish you would have known before you started your business that maybe you know now?
So many things.
I know, like, this is one of those conversations where if we could tell our future self or our past self what our future self knows, like, it's mind blowing. So share a couple if there's a couple that pop to mind.
so there's two things. One is mindset. I didn't start my business for almost 20 years because I really didn't think I could do it. And it really was just, imposter syndrome, whatever you want to call it. I just didn't think I had the abilities. But once I got on that path of going to classes and making sure I had all my ducks in a row, I was like, okay, I got this. I do know what I'm doing. I can do this. There's, sometimes you just have to jump in. I was like pushed off the deep end, but I did it. I still swam. But the other important thing for me was it wasn't just about mindset. I think it came down really from messaging. What I didn't connect is everything I'd been thinking about of what I want to do, how I wanted to help, was actually in my ideal client's language, but I never connected it. I was so ingrained in business analysis and using jargon that I used the wrong language. And it took me paying someone to tell me what I already knew.
Yeah.
But we got once I'm like, really? Right. That was my thought process when I wanted to start my business. Like, these are the words I was using. And they're like, well, then why didn't you use them? I'm like, because I didn't think you always think it's bigger. It has to be, in a certain way. No, just use your basic language that you would use every day and write it down.
Yeah.
That like that's the secret to messaging. Write down. I mean, if your language to yourself is like super academic, that probably isn't your ideal client language. Just there's a good chance it's not. But for the most part, what you're thinking about and why you want to start your business, that's your message.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, this is what I teach in my business. And it's so important that we don't use jargon, that we don't use
Yes.
consultant speak or coach speak.
Yep.
Or I always joke, it's like the doctor coming into the your office visit and they're like, oh, you have conjunctivitis. And like, oh my gosh, am I dying? Like, what's happening here? And you're like, it's pink eye. And you're like, well, why didn't you just say that? Like, why do you scare me with this giant big word?
Right.
I don't know what you're talking about. But if you just would have said pink eye to start with, I would have been like, okay, cool. I need the antibiotic. Like,
Yeah.
but I think as entrepreneurs, so many times we get, I don't know, like stuck, scared. Like, we try to use all
Yeah.
these fancy words, or we use like our jargon coach talk.
Yep.
And that's not what our clients are going to resonate with. Like,
No.
we want to use I call it like liquid gold. When you can take your ideal client's exact language that you either heard them say, or you found information or a study or something from it, and use that
Yep.
language and what you're doing, that's when the magic happens. Like, liquid gold is so good. Like, when you have the right phrase on your offer page and your clients are going, you're talking specifically to me. I was just talking with a client a little while ago, and I was talking about the same topic. And I was like, it's kind of like being at church, and like when the pastor is talking, and like, that like you're like, wait, am I the only one in the room? Like, were you in my head? Like, why are you talking specifically to me? Like, and that can be in other instances of the church too. But like, we've all had that moment where like someone's talking from a stage, and you feel like you're the only person in the room, and they're speaking directly to you. That's liquid gold. That is when you're like marketing and your messaging and how you're showing up and conveying the words that your people are like, tell me more. You're talking my language.
It's so true. It's so true. And I think, part of that too is it's a mental break though. Like, you really have to understand and embrace it. Where am I going with this? So I think for me, it was one of those issues where I was in the beginning, I was trying to prove to myself by using big words so that other people would trust me.
Mm.
I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs come from. It's, you're like, I'm doing this on my own. How can I show you that I'm trustworthy or that I have the knowledge? So you throw out all your jargon thinking that impresses people. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't. And one of my mentors calls that like smart women problems, right?
Yes.
We're using words that we think are going to solve the problem, but we're actually confusing our client at that point, because we're using words that don't resonate or don't connect with them.
Yep.
And then they're like, oh, well, it's just like the doctor incidents. Like, when you take it down a notch, you're like, oh, it totally makes sense. Like, now I get it. But sometimes we overcomplicate the process. to
Yeah.
where our ideal client is so confused. They're like, I like the content you're putting out. I came to your website. I've listened to your podcast. I've done this. They're like they're big fans of yours, but they don't know how to buy or
Okay.
what to do next
Mm,
because you kind of
yep.
lost them in that
In that
translation.
transition. Yep. Exactly.
And
Exactly.
you want raving fans, but you also want a profitable business too. You want
Yes.
that
Yep.
raving fan to be able to convert right over
Yep. Yep.
to
It's like I know they can't afford me all people, and that's why you do what you do. But that side is you still have to be able to pay your bills.
I wish I could just show up and not have to worry about like the other
Yep.
people, but that's
Mhm.
what gives us the ability to give back and to like do good in our community
Yeah.
and
Yep.
survive and have
Exactly.
shelter and food and like all those basics that we need.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
So important. Those little details are so important sometimes.
Yeah. Food, whatever. Food, shelter.
Otherwise, you just have a really fun hobby.
Yeah. Aw, that's a lot of work for a fun hobby.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about the type of clients that you work with today and how you support them.
So for me, I started off working mainly with retail, brick and mortar, Main Street type shops. But what I've discovered in my transition here is that I really work with Main Street businesses, and it can be anything from manufacturing to software to a hypnotherapist. I really work with the small business owner who's helping the community in some way. Um, their base issue is they can't get found. So if you're someone who you haven't set up the key for me is a Google My Business page, or you have it and never update it and don't use it like social media, um, that's probably a good sign that your business is probably struggling. If Google can't find you, your ideal client isn't going to find you. So I work with the Main Street small businesses who are really trying to lay that groundwork for a great, strong digital platform that they can grow off of. So for me, it's clients. I'm going to show them how to have enough of a presence that Google knows what you do and other search engines know what you do, and how to go from free marketing into paid marketing that actually will have results. Because I think too often people just throw money at marketing, and there's a strategy behind it, and you have to understand how to use it to get people to actually click on your ads and become leads and convert into a paid client. So I help develop that strategy. So when we're done working together, you've gone from having almost no digital presence to you have a strategy in place, your digital presence is there, and now you have a strategy for paid advertising that will actually bring dollars into your business.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so important too. I know a lot of my clients will come to me sometimes and they've been running Facebook ads or they've been spending money on different types of marketing avenues. And when we go back a little bit and look at their numbers and look at what's going on, like they weren't even converting their organic traffic before they started spending money and
Ooh,
trying to grow their business that way. So like that's one
yeah.
of the reasons why I find it so important to like go back to basics, like have that strong foundation for your business, make sure things are organically working in your business, and then you can put the dollars behind it, right? And like
Yeah.
amplify what you've got working in the beginning. So I
Yep.
love that you go in and really help them create that digital footprint for how they're going to show up and actually be found. Like there's nothing worse than having a really great website if nobody finds it. Like
Yep. Right? Why spend all the money on like someone to do it for you if it doesn't convert? At the end of the day, that's what you need. So yeah, and that's that business analyst in me too. It's all about laying that groundwork so you have a strong foundation. I'm all about get to the root cause. And that's why I focus on where I do, because the root cause, the problem for a lot of small businesses, they just don't know how to use the search engines to get found. So I'm like, I can fix that.
that's awesome. And it's
Yeah.
especially like you couldn't have started your business at a better time because the whole
Right.
entire world went digital. Even
Right.
the schools, the government,
Yeah.
the corporations that were afraid to let their employees work 1 day a week from home
Yeah.
to like help alleviate traffic in California alone, right?
Yeah.
Like all of those businesses now are like, oh, like we could do virtual schooling, we could do
Yeah.
virtual like work from home every single day and not have an office anymore. Or yeah, you
Yeah.
want to work from home a couple of days a week, like let's support that. Like we saw that you were able to function the past year in
Yep.
your environment. So there's so many businesses that have been able to transition. So I can
Yep.
imagine that people are like, hey, Amy, I need like, how do I make sure they're finding me on online? Because
Yep.
a lot of times people were used to doing in-person events. I know
Yep.
when I started my business back in 2007, I was in Las Vegas at the time, and I grew my entire business from referrals and networking. Like I was
Yep.
going to every single networking event I could find. I was doing anything on like
Yep.
on the ground running, basically, right? Walking into
Yep.
businesses, going to networking events, meeting somebody I met at the networking event for a coffee appointment at Starbucks, doing all of those things. And then when we moved to California almost 7 years ago now, my youngest was 6 months old. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm moving to a whole new state. My husband's going to be working an hour from where we're living at. So he's going to be commuting.
Yep.
And like I'm gonna have to like, how am I gonna go out and network again and like meet people? And I was like, and he's 6 months old. I didn't have any family or friends here like I had in
Yep.
Vegas. So I decided, I was like, I'm gonna figure out this online business. Like I was starting to see
Mhm.
that coaches were like working virtually 100% and doing it online. So I started
Yep.
doing the research, and that's when I transitioned everything over. And I was like, oh, thank God I found this, because I don't know what I would have done. Like, I mean, I guess
Yeah.
I probably would have got a babysitter or did something, but I love the ability now to work with clients all over the world
Yep.
and not have like in Vegas, all my clients were in Vegas. I didn't market outside of that area. And now
Wow.
I have clients in different countries, different states. Like it's a pretty cool concept to like talk to
Yep.
people and they're like, you're actually
Yep.
looking at their weather on their Zoom camera. You're like, it's snowing there. I wish
Yep.
I had snow in California.
No, you don't. No, I came from Minnesota. No, you don't.
I do like the weekend snow bunny trip. That's about it as I
You
can.
know, yeah, I could handle that. I could handle that. But you're right. Like I started my plan for, networking and referrals all involved face to face. Well, that went out the window.
Yeah.
So literally by the end of March, I had signed up for 3 virtual summits. And one of those virtual summits, I have probably gained the most connections from. And actually one of the founders is actually one of my clients. So,
Amazing.
but she's in Washington, DC.
Yeah.
So think about, I mean, like I literally was so focused when I started on being just Inland Empire. And I think I finally got my first Inland Empire client like January. Everyone is everywhere from Wisconsin to the East Coast because of all the connections I've made through networking and summits and everything else. So yeah,
Yeah.
virtual is a good
It's pretty
thing.
cool. Like I don't think I have a California client right now.
Yeah,
I'm like, I have a client in Spain. Well, no, I do
nice.
have a Northern California client, I guess, but like nobody local, like right here to me that I would have met otherwise without
Yeah,
amazing Google and internet.
right, right. So do you use Google Analytics? I have to ask.
I do, yeah.
Do you know?
I'm nowhere near as cool and savvy at it as you are by any means. A lot of my audience knows the story, and I might have shared this with you too. Like back in June when my Facebook account got hacked, and I
Yeah,
lost Instagram, Facebook, my pages, my groups, all of those pieces of my business. I really pivoted my business, and that was where I spent my focus and my energy on. It was looking at SEO. I was like, all right, let's figure out Google, let's figure out YouTube, and let's figure out Pinterest. And
yeah,
thank goodness I was quick to pivot, use that word pivot earlier. Like that's the 2020 was the year of pivoting. I'm pretty sure we all are exhausted of hearing that word at this point, but
yep,
I was able to pivot and really focused all of my marketing effort, not all of them, but a good chunk of my marketing efforts to SEO friendly type of platforms. And
yep,
my business has grown since then. Like, and I
yep,
spend less
yep,
time marketing than I did when I spent a lot of time on social media.
yep,
So
yep. Yeah, that's one of my big keys too when I talk to clients is, you can have those and they're good to have as a backup for people to find out more and you can gain your trust, but you're not going to build your business off of Facebook
yeah.
and Instagram. You need to go with more open platforms.
Absolutely. Like social media to me, and I always said this, but I still kind of spent a lot of time there before like everything pivoted in June. Um, but like social media is a great platform for nurturing your audience and building
Yep.
a community and like taking your warm or cold leads and like warming them up a little bit more.
Yep.
But very rarely do you get a lot of cold traffic that
Yeah.
finds you on social media and then
Yeah.
converts into clients. Like, yeah, it
Yeah.
happens occasionally. If somebody's specifically looking for something and they
Yeah.
come across you, it happens.
Yeah.
But it's a lot
Pretty
easier to
rare.
spend my time and energy on SEO type platforms and get
Yep.
more clients that come in that way when they're
Yep.
like they're organically searching for me and they're finding me
Yep.
on Pinterest when they can't sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning and they're worried about the business. Or if they're on YouTube and they happen to type in a title for something they're looking for and I show up in their feed. And then I
Yep.
get a message like, hey, I found you on YouTube. And I'm like, oh my gosh, YouTube's working. Like, this is actually working. People are watching my videos.
See, and it's so funny because like I obviously through analytics I track that and I'm like, ooh, look at that! I acquired 5 people this week from YouTube. Woo!
And I'm not, I don't go into all the numbers like I think you do probably, but I'm
Yeah.
a huge like KPI tracker in my business. And I teach all my clients, like, you have to know your numbers. Like, you need to know
Yeah.
what marketing strategies are you doing, how many leads came in each week from those different things, and how many of those leads actually converted to clients. Like, you need to know
Yep.
those numbers so that you can gauge how your year's been. You can easily identify like, oh my gosh, this one's working amazing, I'm going to do more of this.
Yep.
Or holy crap, like, I've been spending a lot of time doing this and there is nothing to show from it. Pivot or change. There's that pivot word again.
Yeah.
But like, it's so important to know your numbers and know, like, yeah, are you getting website traffic? Where is it coming from? Is it coming from Pinterest? Is it coming from Facebook, from like the people that you're nurturing there, like, and the
Yeah.
people are clicking back over? And knowing those numbers makes a huge impact. You can just make really smart decisions for your business and for the strategy that you've set in place. And there's nothing worse than spending all this time and energy running a business and then going, well, I think it's working. I don't know how I get clients, but they come to me.
That was my first client.
Yeah, and it definitely happens. I definitely was not as good at tracking in the beginning. I'll be completely honest. Like, in
Yeah.
the beginning, I was throwing spaghetti against the wall. Like, I'm like, is that going to stick? Maybe.
We'll see.
I always like joke or laugh kind of when I think back to like my first clients. Like, I worked with a landscaper. I had a client that owned like a quickie mart type of location. I had an attorney. I had a digital like graphic designer. And I was like, it was when I sat like 2 years into my business when I almost walked away and like said, this is too hard. I don't know how to do this anymore because I was marketing to everybody in the world. I was like, I'm a business coach. Come work with me. I don't care what kind of business you have. I could teach niching down, but for some reason I didn't quite grasp that I needed to do it too.
It's so normal. So normal.
It's like the nail salon's like her nails are never done, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
I was definitely like, but I had that moment and I was like, wait a second, like how am I going to keep doing this? Like, I'm tired, I'm overwhelmed, I'm exhausted, I'm burning out. I'm like trying all these different things. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And I had like that coming to Jesus moment where I like journaled my little heart out. And I was like, oh, this is who I want to work with. I love working with service-based coaches and like service-based entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants. Like, that was my niche. And once I like figured that out and changed my messaging and spoke directly to them, it was amazing. Like, my business actually grew and it wasn't as hard anymore. And it started becoming more easy. And I was speaking directly to them and they knew I was talking to them instead of talking to all the business owners in the whole entire world. And though I can work with any type of business, like the training and the tools and techniques that I use can work with any kind of business. And I sometimes do attract other types of businesses. Every once in a while, I work with a product-based business. I don't market to them, but occasionally they're like, hey, I saw your stuff. It resonated. Will you work with me? I get to choose, right? Like, as with my business, I get to look at their values and like what they're doing and make sure it's in alignment with who I want, like the type of client I want to work with. And I get to make that choice at that time.
Yep, exactly. And it's so key. Which is, like I said, I help people with messaging and I had to hire someone for my own messaging. So I get it. I have a marketing team and she runs a large marketing agency out of LA and she does marketing for other marketing agencies because they can't get it. So it's what's the strength for you is usually a weakness when you do it for yourself.
Yeah. No, and it's one of those things, like I've always had a coach in my business.
Yep.
Like every time that I've stopped working with a coach, I've noticed things about myself where I'm like, oh, I need a coach again. Like I need to keep my mindset right. I need to keep taking action. I need to make sure that I'm doing the right things. And as I'm growing and developing and like learning new things, like I have to like pivot a little bit and change things
Yep.
up a little bit. And I need that accountability just as much as
Yep.
my clients need me. Like I
Yep.
have a coach that I go to get that exact same support.
Yep. Exactly. We all need someone to be our cheerleader.
Yeah, no, definitely. This has been so fun, Amy. Thank you so much for coming on the show and like sharing your journey with us. Before we wrap up, I have some rapid fire questions for you. I
Okay.
hope you don't mind playing with me.
Go for it.
All right. So I'm super curious. What are you binge watching right now?
I don't like TV, so I don't binge watch.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I've been asking this question just for the past probably like 5 or 6 episodes now. And over half the people tell me that they don't binge watch anything, which is so funny because every time I hear anybody talk about anything, they're watching something, it seems like. So I'm getting like hit against the wall with this question on my podcast.
It's because we're busy business owners and we're making sure our clients are being taken care of.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm still up at like 9:30 at night while everybody else in my house is sleeping and I'm wide awake. So I'm scrolling through Netflix, finding something to watch. Like right now I'm watching, I think it's called Firefly Lane on Netflix and it's actually pretty good.
I might look it up.
um, what, do you have any books on your nightstand or what business books are you reading right now?
I'm rereading my favorite book called Strategy in Action. It kind of walks you through strategy in business and how to actually make that strategy an actionable activity.
Awesome. And who would you say has made the biggest impact or influence on your life?
My husband. Has to be my husband. He's right there. He's my cheerleader. He didn't leave me when I couldn't like clean the house anymore, so we're good.
That's a good man. That's awesome. I love when it's like when we say people who are like near and dear to us, like family
Yep.
or close people. Like sometimes we get like there's a lot of people that influence us, like authors and different things. But
Yep.
it's so cool when like the people that make the biggest impact are the ones that live in our home with us.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And where do you like to go if you need a reset or recharge?
I don't know if I should admit this on a podcast, but wine country. I go to Temecula or Paso Robles.
Girl, you are speaking my love language. You are good company here. Yeah. As soon as the world opens back up a little bit in California, we're going to go to Temecula wine country.
I still go there once a month.
I was just out there last week, so you're not alone.
Yeah. I went to Sugar Plum Farms and got some really great gourmet chocolate truffles.
I haven't been there before. I did try Lorimar Winery this last week, and then I have a membership at Wilson, so we stopped at Wilson too. But it's there's nothing better than like stepping away for a couple hours and going out, like the views and like the grapes and like
the wine,
beautiful Southern California weather, and then the wine is like a perfect bonus on top.
Yep, I've been to every single vineyard in Temecula, and I'm waiting for De Portola to open. So,
very cool. Yeah, a couple girlfriends of mine and I we're wine touring. Like once a month, we're gonna go to we're going to different wineries to like check them out. So
very cool, very cool.
All right. And my last question for you, and I know I can't do this today, but if I could give you a plane ticket and you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go and why?
So funny. I would actually go to Ireland and the UK. Ireland because they are my number 2 web traffic on my website. And I'm really curious to see why. And I'd like to I want to get there. I want to do some investigating. Do I need to open an office in Ireland?
I'm pretty sure that you need to bring me with you while we consult on this.
I think so.
We'll try out the breweries and make sure that it's a good location.
I would also like to take a side trip into London, though. I am a former Renaissance performer. I'm known as Lady Giggles, and you can actually find me on Facebook as Lady Giggles.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. I was on cast with the Minnesota Renaissance Festival for 2 years. I've done performances everything from Wisconsin to Arizona. So, yeah. So I,
I'm for sure going to have to look you up. And I know our audience is going to be like, oh, little giggles. Let's go find her. Well, while they're out there looking for little giggles, how do they find you and your amazing business as well?
My website is my best place. It's AMG Innovative Consultants.com, but you can find me on all social media channels because I'm a digital person. So I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Instagram, I'm amg.consultants. It's probably my favorite page out of everything that I do. I'm also on LinkedIn. Just look for AMG Innovative Consultants and you'll find something.
Awesome.
So,
And I know you have a free gift for everybody. Can you
yeah.
share a little bit about that for us?
Yeah, Darlene, you're going to put it in the links below. And what it is typically this is a free gift that I give when you sign up for my email, but I'm just going to give it to you guys for listening to the podcast today. It's less than 5-minute video on how you can work search engine optimization and all those rich, juicy keywords into your alt tags and make your website handicap accessible. Being that I'm disabled myself, I really understand the importance of making sure that your business is open and available to all ideal clients, not just able-bodied clients. So using your alt tags are really important. And I show you a special tool to use and how to change up some wording to make it SEO acceptable, as well as making your accessible to all people.
Thank you so much. That's such a beautiful gift. I love how you pulled it together like the way that you did.
Yeah, thanks.
And before we wrap up, I'd love to hear what's your next steps? What's coming up for you?
My next steps is I'm launching a new part of my company this year. Hopefully by June. I'm thinking it might be July or August though. I am launching service-based Google Analytics for companies. So if you just want someone to come in and manage your Google Analytics platform and say, this is what we're seeing through the numbers and this is where you need to look for, looks like you're having a technical issue on this page, or you might want to change up your wording here, relook this page. That's what I'm going to do for you. So it'll have different packages based on how much you want us to help you, but it starts with Google Analytics only. And we also work in social media insights if you go with some of the higher packages. So we can actually show you this post brought in the most people. Is this wording your ideal client? Because they went to your website, but you had 100% bounce rate. So let's look and see how we can refine your marketing.
Awesome. And a lot of our audience is service-based entrepreneurs. So definitely take note of that and make sure you're following Amy to find out when she launches that, either late spring, early summer, it sounds like.
Yep. Sign up for the email. Email people get first dibs on everything. And there's going to be a waiting list for this because I've already got 10 people on it.
There's nothing better than launching something with a giant wait list already ready.
Right. Well, and the thing is if I'm at a point where you're limited as to how many platforms or properties you can manage. So for every so many, I have to hire a new person. So the more people get a waiting list, the more people I'll hire and the more I'll be able to get going right away. So
yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, keep us posted on how it's going.
I will.
Amy, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been such a pleasure to chat with you and to hear your story. I so appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you too. I'm looking forward to working with you more at SCORE too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everybody. That's another amazing episode on the Attract and Stand Out podcast. I will see you next week. Have an amazing day.